Okay friends, one of the first things we have to do to get started on our job is to safely raise and support the truck so the front wheels are off the ground. After that, we're going to remove all 5 of our lug nuts and then remove the wheel. So with the wheel off, you're going to notice that you have a little shield coming across here. Just go ahead and pull out the push pins that hold it on there. Ours doesn't have it, so we're going to move along. With the wheel off of there, the next thing we want to do to start getting this control arm out of here is make sure we have plenty of slack coming from our ABS wire. We're going to go ahead and remove this bracket off of the control arm. All right, set this aside. Now the next thing we want to do is make our way down the knuckle here to the bracket that holds the brake hose to the knuckle. The reason why we want to do that is because once we relieve the ball joint from the knuckle, this is going to want to fall down, and we don't want to put a tug on our flex hose. Now the next thing that we're going to want to do is remove the upper ball joint from the knuckle right here. Before we do that, I just want to mention that once you do remove this knuckle is going to potentially come falling this way, which could of course damage the axle. We don't want to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and use a bungee cord. You can use whatever you have, and then just strap it around so that way there, when this does actually finally break free, it's not going to come falling too far and damage anything. Let's go ahead and grab onto this clip right here. I'm just going to separate it and then draw it out of the ball joint. Now let's remove the nut. Okay, I'm just going to leave that on there just a few threads. Now let's grab our hammer and we're going to hit right along this area right here. The next thing we want to do to remove our upper control arm is to take out the through bolt. The through bolt is going to come through from the front, through this strut tower right here, and then out to this point. Just going to go ahead and hold on to this nut right here, and then I'll come up there with my ratchet and start loosening it up. Okay, let's get that nut off of there. Grab the washer as well. Now we can start taking this bolt and we're going to slide it up and past the wiring right here. What you're probably going to notice is the washer itself is going to get stuck along the way. So what I like to do is just keep the washer down along the control arm and only slide the bolt. There it is, friends. So now before we go ahead and put the control arm in, I wanted to talk about this big long bolt here. We got lucky on ours where it didn't necessarily get stuck inside the strut tower, but it is a common thing that can happen. So for me personally, when I'm installing these, I like to apply a little bit of copper never sees to the hole, just so it actually lubricates it along the way. Now it's going to be time to install our brand new upper control arm. With the bolt, we want to make sure that we have this washer all the way down by where the threaded area is, because that's going to be the first place that goes through the control arm. I'll line up the control arm with approximately where it needs to be. Now let's slide the bolt up and in here. Now that we have the bolt slid through, I applied a little bit of red thread locker to it. The next thing I'm going to do is take a screwdriver or a pry bar, and I'm going to put this control arm so it looks as though it's in the position that it would be in if the truck was on the ground. So essentially I'm just going to stick this in here, just like this, and I have it almost parallel to the ground. The reason why we're doing this is so that when it is actually on the ground, we're not going to be putting a stretch on our bushings once these are tightened up. Next, we're going to go ahead and put on our washer and then our nut. Now the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and snug this up, and then we'll torque it to 173 foot-pounds. Now the next thing we need to do is put the ball joint into the knuckle. I'm just going to use a pry bar up along the spring here and help this control arm down. Let's get this off of here. Now we're going to snug our ball joint nut and then torque it to 81 foot-pounds. Now the next thing you want to do after you have this snugged is to pay attention to the hole on the ball joint stud and the slot on the nut. If for some reason they don't line up, you need to continue tightening the nut until the very next slot does. Now it's time to put in the cotter pin. Slide it through and then pin it over so there's no way the nut can loosen up on its own. Now let's move down along to the knuckle and re-secure this. Now we're going to put back on this bracket. Go ahead and line up the tab with the hole on the control arm. Start the bolt in there and then snug it up. Let's put the wire in there. This one over here. Once you have the wire in both of the bracket areas here, go ahead and snug it up. Just going to carefully pinch this down. Obviously, I don't want to crush the ABS wire in any way. I just want to secure it. Let's go ahead and get our wheel on here. We'll snug up the lug nuts, get the wheel on the ground, and then we'll torque them to manufacturer specifications. Now with the wheel safely on the ground, we're going to continue on by torquing these lug nuts. When you torque them, there's going to be a couple different specifications. If you have the aluminum wheel, like we have here, you're going to torque your lug nuts to 97 foot-pounds. If you have a steel wheel, like you could take a magnet and stick it right to it, you need to torque those to 154. Torqued. Okay friends, we got the front end back together. What's left to do now? Go ahead and take it for a road test down to your local alignment shop.